Okay, so thank you, and thank you very much for inviting me in this forum. So what I'm trying to do is give you a small brief presentation on environmental KPIs for the motorways of the sea. And the basic question here is what should be the criteria by which we evaluate the environmental performance of the motorways of the sea. And there is a related question, can the motorways of the sea contribute to a green transport system in Europe? Yes, okay. So everybody has seen this picture, the two regulations, the 10T guidelines and the Connect Europe facility. And everybody is familiar with these 30 priority projects, of which one, number 21, is the motorways of the sea. And we have 4 motorways of the sea across Europe, Northern Europe and then the Mediterranean. Now, it's fair to say that your legal arsenal as regards the environment and maritime affairs is pretty impressive. So, I have put there a non-encyclopedic list of directives, regulations, etc., that pertain to maritime and the Dutch see the latest is the MRV regulation, but then you have the sulfur directive and all kinds of other stuff. There might be more. Now, the basic question I have is, if you comply with all this, is this a necessary and sufficient condition that you have a green and sustainable motorways of the sea? What do you think? In my opinion, it is necessary but not sufficient. I will try to explain. What do we mean by green? I mean, there are many definitions. This is a favorite definition of mine. Try to achieve an acceptable environmental performance of the supply chain, but at the same time respect traditional economic performance criteria. Why is that? If you do not respect traditional criteria, then you may have non-viable solutions. You may have things that the trade decreases or even shuts down. So you have to find win-win solutions. Now, in order to improve something, you have to measure it first. Therefore, you have to come up with these KPIs, key performance indicators. And in the rest of my talk, I'm going to focus on emissions, mainly because of the work that we have done over the years, noting that there are other things also, like oil spills, residues, garbage, noise, that are important. But my focus will be on emissions. And looking at the greenhouse gas emissions first, among other things, the white paper on transport has set a very ambitious goal, reducing emissions, greenhouse gas emissions by 60% or more. And the question is, how can you do that while at the same time allowing trade to stay alive? And I would submit that the role of motorways of the sea is critical here, mainly in terms of trying to shift traffic from land to sea, because of the better environmental performance of ships versus trucks. Now, we don't have to reinvent the wheel here. Performance indicators. What is an appropriate approach? I want to mention the project Supergreen, which has done a lot of work in this area. This was a project on green corridors, ended a few years ago. 22 partners across Europe. And initially we produced quite a lot of KPIs. This is a list of them. 17 KPIs broken down in 5 major categories. The environmental KPIs you see in green over there. The first reaction was, well, this is too complicated. Can you simplify it? So we had a process of consultation, stakeholder solicitation, discussions, many meetings, 4 meetings. We had an advisory committee, discussions, and more discussions. And at the end of the day, we came up with these 6 most important KPIs. The 2 environmental ones are the ones in green, CO2 equivalent and SOx. But you also have the other ones. However, I note that these KPIs should be customized for every corridor by the corridor management, on the basis of the objectives for each corridor. For example, you may have KPIs on oil pollution or whatever else, noise. And these are the 9 corridors we selected for benchmarking. Across Europe, there are actually some deep sea corridors here. What about the performance? I mean, we ran some numbers. What we found was that we are doing better in terms of cost and CO2 emissions, but worse in terms of SOx and transport time, and the other KPIs were mixed. And then the question is, how can we improve the KPIs? Here is a sample of the numbers. With the arrows are the corridors which involve a short sea shipping component. There are some follow-on corridor projects at EDU that we are working on right now in the context of Interreg. Now turning now to SOx, from carbon to sulfur. Everybody familiar with this diagram there. Caps on sulfur emissions and the ECAs, emissions control areas, where in Europe it is only right now a sulfur control, emission control area in the Baltic Channel and the North Sea, but in the North American ECA it is also a NOx ECA. The Mediterranean is not right now a SICA, and one question that needs to be addressed is, should it be a SICA? We've done an analysis there. And the other potential problem may occur in 2020 in case the global cap is pushed back to 2025. If this is the case, you have a dual regime in the Med. The EU cap being active and the global cap being pushed back to 2025, then the question is, there should be an enforcement challenge and possible distortions of flows of ships trying to avoid the EU cap, because it's more expensive. There is a new project we have at DDU, which is sponsored by the Danish Maritime Fund, where our industry partner is the FDS, trying to find, assess and analyze possible modal shifts as a result of these regulations. And we are looking right now at 8 routes of DFDS, 4 in the North Sea, 3 in the Baltic, and 1 across the Channel. This is a model that we have produced. I don't really have time to go over it, but there is a website that reports progress, and there will be a workshop at EDU on June 16. If anybody is interested, I'd be happy to give them more details. So, to conclude, yes, the environmental KPIs are important, but you also have to not forget the additional KPIs that are necessary to make the motorways of the sea viable from an economic standpoint. In other words, environmental KPIs are not enough. You have to have win-win solutions. The motorways of the sea can indeed contribute to important EU sustainability goals. I realize that some work is ahead of us to achieve this goal, and the detailed implementation plan which we are working on is the main tool toward that objective. Okay, so that was my presentation. My last slide is about this book that I edited. It has come out recently. This is everything you always wanted to know about green logistics. It also covers 10 Ts, the sulfur issue. It's not only maritime, all modes of transport are included, including air. And this is what I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any questions arising from Harislaos' presentation? Yes, sir. Can you announce who you are and where you're from?
My name is Patrick van Wijnen. I represent shipmasters in Europe, European Shipmasters Associations. And my question was to the gentleman who just made the presentation. Don't you think that shipping should be profitable? Because if you don't make it profitable, there are all kinds of limitations, and you don't have any people left who want to invest in shipping, you're on the wrong way. So this is my question.
Yeah, it was exactly the point that I wanted to make, that environmental KPIs and performance is fine, but another important and perhaps crucial condition is that you be profitable. If you are not profitable, forget it. I mean, there will be no trade, and you can have all the environmental KPIs you want. So you have to find what I call the win-win scenarios. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. But anyway, your point is very well taken.
Can I just add that?
Yeah, John.
I've been in the shipping industry quite a long time, 10 years particularly specialised in, and shipping masters and ship owners take what they think is the best decision in regard to their profitability. And that's why we moved into what I used to campaign against, the flags of convenience ships, where they take the crews from wherever as long as they're cheapest. We began to get the highest level of losses of ships simply because of the lack of skill. So there needs to be a framework. I think the balance of different things is quite important to put in. And at the end of the day, though, it's one. And in fact, climate change issues, you have to measure against what you're contributing to the global commitment to cut gases, alongside still keeping profitability, because one of the dangers will still be, as has been mentioned, they may then redirect their ships to other areas on cheaper routes. But at the end of the day, they are required to come into a port. We haven't developed a system yet where they unload at sea. And therefore, within the framework of Europe, you have some, and that's what happened with cheap labour, there are certain standards internationally decided, of which if we're saying a ship coming into an area cannot come if it's doing damaging emissions against our standards, so the other Ks are quite important, but they have to be put into the balance. At the moment, the environmental consideration is not to the fore of mind of the ship owner, quite frankly, who's operating the ship in that way, and we have to find a balance there.
All right. Any other questions? No? Right then. Well, sorry I didn't see you.
Hi. Hello, I'm Sinuakos. I'm representing the Liguria region, and so a maritime region, like many others here in Europe. Yes. And I'm also coordinating one of the 6 action cluster of the Innovation Partnership for Smart City. So in particular, I'm coordinating the group on integrated planning, policy and regulation. In our group, we are working on setting up some KPIs. So trying to select for Smart City a selected number of KPIs. And I think it would be very important also to link this activity done for cities with the KPIs that you are developing, and also considering the integrated planning not only from a city perspective, but including also the ports in the consideration of the integrated planning of a city, because a port, as you said probably in your publication, and also the Portuguese member of the parliament also talk about smart maritime region. And I think that this combination could be very effective, working together. We will have a big event during the Dutch presidency now in Eindhoven in the 24th of May. So I think we could maybe also link and discuss together to see if some of your KPIs could fit well with the one that we are selecting in our group.
Yes, thank you. I didn't say that these KPIs are also valid for cities, but there might be some common elements. So it would be very interesting to see what you have done.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, I'm François Potier from representing Brittany Ferries. You have mentioned several KPIs, and you're also arguing that we would need more KPIs. At Brittany Ferries, we are of the opinion that we also would need one major KPI that would be the evaluation of externalities. So do you think that we should also process this way, by evaluating on a single basis, on a monetary basis, the whole of the KPIs that you have mentioned?
Yes, I agree that externalities are very important and should be taken into account. There are many methods to compute the external costs of pollution, so long as you know what the pollution is. So by having the pollution KPI, the CO2 and the SOx, for example, you can have another step to translate these into equivalent external costs. And then my opinion is that this external cost should be internalized to the greatest possible extent. If you don't internalize them, then you create distortions and have all kinds of undesirable effects. So basically I agree with you that this is important.
Any more? No? Oh, well, thank you. Thank you very much.